What's up, everyone? I am Betty Dots, and I am ready to look at the new music in Melty Blood Type Lumina. New DLC came out for free. Incredible for fighting games. And with new DLC, we got 2 characters, we got 3 stages, and I just want to look at the new music that Master Raito put into the game. So let's start this up. We got 2 new characters. We got, obviously, Aoko. You got the nice clean t-shirt, got the nice red hair, got the lasers, got the balls, got the bombs. Very cool. We also got the dead apostle Noel, who is not my favorite pick for a character, but I suppose she's important to the lore somehow. But that doesn't really matter, right? We're not really concerned with the characters when we talk about Melty Blood Type Lumina. We're mostly concerned with the stages, because unlike most fighting games, the music here is attached to the stage. It's kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 style, where every stage has its own music. And we got 3 stages. That means 3 new songs. I want to check them all out. Give them a listen real quick. Listen to the loop ones, and then just talk a little bit about what's happening in there and see if we can figure anything out in the song, and if there's any cool stuff to talk about. Let's just get right to it. I want to put the stage on the screen, because if we put the stage on the screen, that'll kind of put us where we have to be, right? We got to be right where it is. This song is still goated. This is still the best song in the game. The character select. Shall we start with the Crimson Chapel? Let's do the Crimson Chapel. All right, Crimson Chapel, Raito. Let's see what we have in store. Okay. Heavier on the rock. With the strings too. Definitely fitting the stage. Okay. The mix sounds kind of weak. I do like that. Okay, all right. It's cool. It's a cool melody. All right, nice little synth break. With the big Castlevania organs. Yeah, this is definitely made for the dead apostle Noel. Okay. Oh, you got vocals in the back. You got that a little bit of growling in the back. You hear it? I do love that guitar tone. We bring those strings back. I gotta say, not the biggest fan of that string counter melody, kind of riff that they have there. Ooh. Nice little triplet hit there. So it's an A minor. This is cool. Cool break. And they go back to, so the loop just starts from the beginning. There's no special intro or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's cool. It's not my favorite, though. I think there's a common theme with the heavier rock tunes. It just feels it's good, but not my favorite. It doesn't have as much interest. All right, so it's playing off of the flat 5 of the scale, getting that sort of diminished sound out of it. That big tritone. Kind of cute. This is kind of lukewarm, or I'm lukewarm on it. I don't love this organ section. It's fine, but it's not very interesting. There's not a lot of things going on. I do love the voices in the back here. I love this guitar lead. That little string riff that's just going off of the A minors going there. So I think in general the C section is fine, but not very special. This is cool. Love this kind of loop back. I wish there could have been more of this going on in that middle section. Maybe at least a hint of a guitar or something like that, instead of just the organ. I get it, it's scary, it's spooky, it's all this stuff, but it doesn't really have the same impact. Can you pause this? Yeah, so in general, I think it's like fine. I don't think it has a lot going for it. A section is solid with like that guitar. Let me see if I can figure out. Right, okay, so it's also going to the flat 5 in the bottom, which by the way, when I talk about the flat 5, the fifth of A is A, B, C, D, E, right? And that's fine. That's just part of the scale. It's part of like every A chord or most A chords. But if I make that 5 flat, so I bring it down a half step to over here, you can see how there's this sort of like scary sound going to it. They are using that tritone note, which is what the flat 5 is, in the melody. And by the way, there's like a myth amongst music teachers and amongst like music people that the tritone in the Middle Ages was like the devil's interval and it was like banned by music. That's not really the case. There's a lot more reasons why people didn't use the tritone, but it wasn't banned because of being the devil's interval. I'm not really sure like where that rumor came from. What happened mostly is that when you sung a tritone, which is decisively a pretty like dissonant interval, it like makes you feel kind of uncomfortable. What happened is that these monks in the Middle Ages were singing inside of Roman churches, and the Roman churches had a lot of reverb going on, right? So if you sung a tritone together, that sound lingered for a little bit longer than it should, and it would like muddy, it would dirty up the next chord that they would sing together. And so a lot of composers in that time avoided that tritone to avoid that sort of like lingering dissonance. You see, it ends on that tritone an octave lower, and then it goes something like that. The first part of the melody ends on the low tritone, and the second part of the melody ends on the high one, right? So there's definitely a big focus on that tritone. It's also very common in metal music, again, because it has that kind of like challenging, sort of evil, dark sound. It's good. It's good. It's doing what it needs to be doing, considering the stage. The stage does look kind of like hell. Even like the flowers, like if you look at the flowers in the stage, they almost don't look real. They look like, yeah, the chord progression doesn't really have anything special. It hits the flat 2 at one point, which we said during Happy Chaos is kind of like a dissonant chord in a chord progression too. Oh, that's kind of cool. So the strings at that point go, and that's making it into like A major, right? So maybe that has to do, maybe that Apostle Noel has like a little bit of a duality to her, where she can be major and minor. She can be like bad, but then she has like a shred of good inside of her. I don't know. Because that string part usually goes to C, but then at the end of the song, it starts going to C sharp, which is like an A major chord. All right, let's listen to that melody again. Here. You see, it goes to that flat 5, and then right, it goes to a flat 7 and then to a flat 5. It's a simple melody, but it does what it needs to do in like a good way. It sounds evil thanks to that tritone. Anyway, it's pretty good. Kind of mid, honestly. I don't love it. It's not even that it's bad, it's that I know that Raito can do a lot better in that. You know what I mean? I'm not his mom, but it seems to be a common theme with like the heavier rock songs where like they just have like, they don't have as much attitude, as much personality to them as some of like other songs, at least in my opinion, right? But that's just my opinion. So our next new song is The Summer Sky. This is like some sort of city courtyard from outside. Let's check that out and see what's happening. All right, Summer Sky, Raito. B flat major. Ooh. I love what they're doing cha-cha with the guitar riff right there. Thank you. Thank you, Raito. Thank you for this one. Oh, that's beautiful. Again, like anytime Raito does a melody with two instruments in unison at the same time, in this case electric guitar and piano, hits me in the heart. Thank you, Raito. You're gonna drop that flute on there? This is beautiful. It makes me want to cry. Oh man. What key are you in now? Oh, you're in F, so you modulate it. No, you're still in B flat, but you're... Oh, I see. Okay. This is so pretty. This is so well done. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, how can I like the Dead Apostle Noel song or like the Chapel whatever when Raito's making stuff like this? Oh, man. You had a, there's another section with the solo on it, of course. And then it just goes back to that piano. I'm such a big fan of this. This is great. The melody feels very floaty because even though it's in B flat major, it's never resolving to that B flat that much. It's mostly finishing on the 6th. That's where the melody starts. Da, 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 da. It's also going to the 3rd a lot, which is a very stable note, but a little bit more challenging than the root. This part breaks up the sound so well. Like, I feel like the texture changes. Huge fan of that. So, like, what do we got there? Bum, 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 bum. Thank you, Paramore. Appreciate it. What's up? This is so good. And you don't even need to keep going. It's like a little bit longer than the other ones, right? Or maybe it just feels like it has so much stuff inside of it. This is so nice. And then you tag it a bunch of times. And then you think it's over. Finishes on the... I'll tell you what they're doing there. It's kind of cool. But then it does another solo at the end. Like, it should have ended at that point, but they just keep going. I actually think that that solo is not a new section. Here, let me mute it for a second. I'll talk to y'all about some stuff. So, first off, I think that that solo at the end is not a new section. That's when the loop starts again. But to not just go back to the loop, they do a really short guitar solo to, like, kind of transition you on there. I think that's very clever. I think in terms of like looping a song, that's a very clever way of doing it. That transition into like that final section, the dun 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 dun, it's really cool because this whole song is in B flat major, right? So here's the scale. The chords that they're using to go down to that F, they're just going da, 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 da. Those are all chords, at least the A flat and the G flat. They're chords from B flat minor. So they're like stealing chords from B flat minor, putting them on there to like kind of give it, it doesn't sound minor, it doesn't sound dark, but it does gain this like a little bit of an edge, right? When you're playing like something like, I think it's, and then it goes not to F, but back to B flat, right? But with F in the melody, right? So if you do like that is so satisfying, right? Like there's something about that chord progression that is just so, it makes you feel so good. Because if you're playing like something in B flat, right? You're like, and then you throw a boom, 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 boom. Perfect for an ending, but it's not even the ending of the song. It just like keeps going, keeps giving you more. Very, very cool. I love that the melodies don't necessarily start on the B flat. It kind of gives it this like floaty sort of sound. It doesn't go to the B flat that much. The melody in the main section, it starts in, right? This is the 6th, 5th, and 4th note of the scale, kind of outside of where we would be listening to stuff. They only touch on the B flat a couple of times, and a lot of the times they finish the melodies on the 3rd, right? Which is D in B flat major. So you see, I put that in the melody, and it's like, yeah, it sounds perfectly normal. It sounds cool, but it's a little bit more interesting than doing... It just sounds like I'm playing Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that. So using the major key in a very clever way, borrowing a number of chords throughout the whole song, not only just the part that I talked about. Even when they're finishing the song, when it like re-loops back and they start doing the solo at the beginning. So listen to this. This. That. You see, it sounds like kind of like, oh, what happened there? They did something weird. Let me show you what they do there, because that's actually a very interesting thing that you can do when you're ending a song. Very like standard major scale melody. They're not playing anything outside of the scale. They're ending on the first note of the scale. Perfect for me to put the first chord of the scale underneath when I end. If I do da 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 da, that's perfect. But what they're doing that makes it sound a lot more interesting and gives a lot more edge and a lot more momentum so that they can grab the loop back is that they're not playing B flat major. They're actually moving everything up a half step and playing B major. And you see in the context of B flat major, this already has like a challenging sort of sound, right? So if I do da 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 da, sounds very nice, doesn't it? It like has this like very stimulating sound to it. It lifts you up, right? So what's happening there? B major shouldn't work at all in B flat major. It's completely outside of the key. Like these notes don't really work inside of the key of B flat major. What's happening here is that instead of making the chord fit the melody, they're making the melody fit the chord. That might seem a little bit weird, but think about this. If you think of not a B major chord, but a B major 7 chord, that does have a B flat in like the chord, right? It's a 7th of the chord. So even though B major doesn't work in the key of B flat major, if I have a melody and I ended on the first note of the scale, then you can use, instead of using the 1 chord at the end, you can use the flat 2 chord, and then the melody note becomes the major 7th of that chord and gives you this like beautiful sound. You see? That's what they're doing here. Da, 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 da. Anyway, gotta say, classic Raito. This is exactly what we want. Very good job, Raito. I love this song. What's it called? The Summer Sky? Very, very good. I could listen to that all day. I'm gonna take it off, but I could listen to that all day. I think it's like really cool because it's breezy, but it's also relevant. It has like a little bit of an attitude to it that like feels important. It feels like someone's telling you something important. Like maybe you should feel emotional about something right now. And I think that's a cool thing to do when you make something that's like easygoing and nice, but it also like kind of tugs at your heart a little bit. We got one more to go. Let's check out the last new song on the Melty Blood soundtrack, Magician's Night EX. And we're going to have the special version of the stage with Aoko stars in the back. So that's exciting. Magician's Night EX. Raito. All right, nice piano. B minor. Very nice. Very nice disco beat. The guitar almost feels out of place, but the melody's so good that it works. That vibrato's so out of pocket. Okay. Nice little string interlude. You still have the 4 on the floor. That's when you have a kick on every beat, right? So 4 on the floor because you're, kicking on every beat. Nice little acoustic guitar in the back there. I love it when Raito brings the acoustic guitar in. It like just gives it an air, which in like an open space like this, it works perfectly for me. This guitar. This is my favorite kind of guitar. It literally sounds like Nile Rodgers from Chic is playing the guitar, right? Like if you've heard, I don't know if y'all know Chic, but if you've ever heard like Daft Punk, Get Lucky, that's the same guitarist. Very good job at these like disco guitars. All right, this is probably the loop right here. Is it really that short? That's a little disappointing that it's that short. Okay, it switches to a major key. Interesting, okay. Yeah, and then it just loops back. A little underwhelmed by the length, but maybe it's just because I just listened to Summer Sky. Because Summer Sky is like lengthy, or at least it feels lengthy. Classic minor scale chord progression. They're doing flat 6, flat 7 to 1. Yeah. Same chord progression the whole time, right? Which I think is what makes it feel a little bit more static. I'm surprised he never varies it. All right, so this last section does have a different chord progression, but then the melody drops out, which is like, it is a beautiful texture. I'm not gonna knock this song for like not having a melody right now, because like, I think the synths, the whooshes, plus the strings, plus the acoustic guitar, plus the strummy guitar, it's making for a really nice texture. And then you just clean it out over here with a little sort of sweep. And then it switches to a major key here at the end, right? It goes from this to this. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. A little repetitive, which makes sense because it's a disco song. Interestingly enough, it seems like on the, I forget the name of the stage, but that stage has like an altar, like that's all blue. It also does like sort of like disco / house plus like electric guitar and like all this stuff. So maybe Raito's like kind of enamored with that idea of like rock guitar on top of a disco track. Nothing to write home about, but it does its job perfectly. I think it like works really well where it's at. I don't love this part. I'll say, like, if you were going to drop it down like that, maybe don't keep the kick, you know? Like, I don't know. There is something about it that feels like a little just tacked on there. Yeah, I think in general it's a good song. I mean, I suppose for me in the A section, I wish it did more than just your classic, like, flat 6, flat 7, 2, 1. Like, the song spends a lot of time just doing that, right? And it's almost begging for, like, if you're gonna just loop that, then you could like vary at the end, right? Like doing flat 6 to flat 7 to 1, maybe the first time, and then maybe the second time you could go flat 6 to flat 7 to like, I don't know, like 5. And then suddenly it has a little bit more of an edge. I felt like some variation could have happened there. I wouldn't have messed with the melody. But I mean, disco is very reliant on repetition and monotony, right? So maybe he was like trying to like shoot for that. I just think that like in contrast with Summer Sky, which is a song that like kept me on my toes. I wasn't even able to figure out what everything was doing. I heard the song once and I knew everything that it was doing right away, right? Which seems very unlike Raito's sort of deal, which I think is kind of like where we stand with like all these tracks. I think this one's very good. It does a very good job at combining like a very driving disco beat with a very commanding electric guitar that's like carrying the melody. Don't love the middle section with like cello and stuff. It feels weak, like lukewarm, but when the acoustic guitar comes in, I'm start feeling it a little bit more. Again, every time Raito puts an acoustic guitar in a song, especially when it's an open space in this stage, it just feels so airy, so breezy, and I really like that. It like really helps with the immersion and like with how it works, and it's just a really nice texture in general. That's a really good way of using acoustic guitar to create like air and space to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain. Like, it's hard to call sound airy if it's not like a trumpet, right? Like literally airy. And then in the last section, the chord progression develops a little bit more. It's still a very standard minor scale chord progression in B minor, but the textural ideas that are going on, right? Like having this like stack of instruments all sharing space, an acoustic guitar, you're sort of like Nile Rodgers, sort of like funky disco guitar, your drums, your like strings, your synths, a little bit of piano, like all those things like kind of like trying to live in the same space at the same time. All of them very ill-pronounced, working together, create a very nice texture. If I was going to pick a favorite part of the song, it would be that final part. Even though it doesn't have a melody or anything like that, it has this nice texture going throughout it. And then it does a very cheesy thing at the end where instead of like resolving to B minor, which the whole song is in B minor, actually switches to B major, right? Which, by the way, is a thing that you can do very easily with that chord progression that I was looking at before. If you play flat 6, flat 7 to B major, that's actually a very common, interestingly enough, a very common disco progression. When synth disco was a thing and people were doing like Giorgio Moroder and like arpeggiators, Donna Summer, I Feel Love kind of deal. Flat 6, flat 7 to 1 major, not 1 minor, has this very space travel epic sort of sound to it that like people used a lot. But anyway, the song resolves on a major key and then it just loops back in a little bit of like a just very standard way. You see, and that all is in B major. So you see, they make that ending be like in B major, give it like a nice end. That loop is really, really weak, I think. What's interesting to me is that in Summer Sky, he like literally added a whole guitar solo to loop right there, right? So it's interesting that like he didn't opt for something like that with this one. I should mention also, sound-wise, this song sounds amazing, but like the whole mix is very like, very driving to like that disco feel. Anyway, good job. All right, very good new songs coming from Raito. I think they're very nice. I think they did very well. I honestly would put Summer Sky. I don't remember exactly what my tier list was when I made it. You could probably check it out over on one of these corners. I don't remember exactly where I put everything, but I think I would put Summer Sky in S tier. That's one of the best songs I've heard on the soundtrack. It does so much. It feels longer than the other songs. It just kind of feels like Raito put more work into it. Like he just spent more time with it and like polished it. The textures are very nice. The combination of guitar and piano is very nice. That sort of chord progression that was going down from B flat major to go back to the B flat major was very nice as well. Like I think in general it's a song that has a lot going for it. On the other hand, you have Magician's 90X, which is like that same scene but at night, and it's good. It has this like very nice driving that sounds very well disco feel, paired with this like lead guitar. But it works really well. The strummy guitar is very good. The acoustic guitar happens in the middle. Don't love the string section in the middle. And in general, harmonically speaking, like in terms of like chord progressions, it's just kind of boring. Like I feel like it could have gone a step beyond, or at least I expect Raito to go a step beyond with that. Like I usually hear that, but I mean, maybe he just figured it didn't need it, right? Because the composition works really well. I said it. The one thing that I feel like it did need is a little bit of a tighter loop. Like the loop is very like, okay, I guess the song's over. Okay, I guess it started again, right? It just doesn't feel like I have any rhyme or reason to like be that way. And then I felt like I would put that one like maybe on like a B tier in the tier list that I made. B, maybe A, like a high B sort of situation, because it's very good. It's very good, but not my favorite. Crimson Chapel, I didn't really like that much, especially in comparison with these other two. When Raito does like a more metal, like heavier song, it just kind of falls in this like well of just being like kind of repetitive, monotonous, not really that interesting texture wise. I love hearing what instruments Raito brings into the mix. With the Crimson Chapel, I didn't get any of that. I just kind of got like heavy riffs, a little bit of a cool like kind of diminished melody relying on that flat 5, ending on like the low flat 5 of the key, and then on the high flat 5 of the key, right? That E flat over an A minor sort of situation. So that was kind of cool, but in general, kind of underwhelmed by that one. What do y'all think of these songs? Do y'all like them? I love that we got 3 new songs for free, as well as 2 characters. I've been playing a little bit of Aoko, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm really thankful for like French Bread. Like I didn't think I would live to see the day where like free fighting game DLC would pop into a game. And obviously Type Lumina has been doing great, like in terms of stuff, but it's a fun game that I enjoyed quite a bit. I think they did a good job. Obviously, like all these things are my opinions and just like me trying to like nerd out on some music and trying to find some like interesting music concepts to like throw at you from that. So hopefully I was enjoyable to you. We're going to keep doing Videogame Music Theories for everything coming out. There's a lot of fighting games coming out, and I plan to talk about a lot of those soundtracks. So I feel like we're going to have some good music to listen to. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it so far, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel, and take care. Peace out. I don't know why I did that with my hands there.